Welcome back. You've learned how to use variables, how to work with strings and numbers, and how to accept user input. Now it's time to pull those skills together. In this video, we're going to build a simple calculator that asks the user for numbers, does some basic math, and prints the result. Let's get coding. To build this, we'll need the following. First, variables to hold our numbers. We're going to require the input function to ask the user for numbers. We'll need some form of type conversion, either the int or float wrapper, to make sure we're working with real numbers. We'll require basic arithmetic operations like the plus, minus, the division, and multiplication. And we need a print statement as well as f strings for clean output. The first step will be to print a nice message for our user. We will say print and pass in welcome to the simple calculator. This will greet our user with a nice little welcome message. Afterwards, we're going to create two different variables to hold both of our numbers. We'll call this num1 and num2. Num1 will be input, and we'll tell the user to enter the first number. And because input returns strings, we're going to want to make sure that we typecast this to a float so it's a number that we can work with. Next, we'll do the same thing for num2. We'll pass in float, and within float, we'll get input, and we'll ask the user to enter the second number. These two variables will hold the two numbers that we will use for our basic operations. Next, let's go ahead and do our variables for adding, subtracting, multiplying, and division. First will be addition, which will be num1 plus num2. Subtraction will be num1 minus num2. Multiplication will be num1 multiplied by num2. And division will be num1 divided by num2. All right. Now, after we do our arithmetic, we should be able to print out a nice and formatted message for each one of these. So we'll use a print statement, and we'll use an f string to display our message. The first one will be addition, so we'll say num1 plus num2 is equal to, and we're going to pass in the variable of addition to show us the results. Next, we'll do the exact same thing for all the other three. Num1 minus num2 is equal to the value that's going to come back from the subtraction and save into this variable. We'll do the same thing for the multiplication. Num1 multiplied by num2 is equal to multiplication. Finally, we'll do division. Num1 divided by num2 is equal to the division variable. We should have our nice and neat arithmetic print statements using our f string operator. Now let's see if we did this correctly or if we need any kind of correction. When I run this, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pass in 5 for my first number and 3 as my second number. And I see here I have an issue with my multiplication. It seems like I forgot the equal sign, so let's go ahead and fix this. Python is pretty generous. It's able to give us corrections of where our code failed. Notice here it told me multiplication, and it showed me exactly where I had an issue. It says invalid syntax. Right? In syntax, it's just a fancy word for grammar really when it comes to coding. And it told me that I practically just wrote this wrong. And when I looked over it, I saw that I was missing the equal sign. We can run this again. We'll pass in 5 and 3. And now my Python simple calculator seems to be working. Now, some small enhancements. Everything looks pretty nice and neat, but I'm getting some weird functionality here with my division. Although this is correct, 1.666 followed by multiple 6s in the 7 should be my answer. This doesn't look visually appealing. So we can make some additions here. Let's go ahead and navigate to our print statement for our division. And what we're going to do is we're going to use a built-in function, which we'll talk a little bit more about later on in our program. But this built-in function allows us to use some additional functionality that we wouldn't normally have. And this functionality is called the round function. This round function is able to take in a floating point decimal and round it to your desired position. For us, it's going to be 2. Notice here, this is the first time we see something like this where we use a function and it takes 2 different values. The print statement, it did take multiple of them, but it didn't use them all to kind of create some kind of output. Here, the round function is going to take division, and the second output or input it's going to take will be the position of where you want to round to. And when I run this, I see here that my division value is now rounded to that second point there, 6, 7, and I get something nice and neatly formatted. All right. So what did we just do? Well, first we asked the user for some input, we processed it, and we showed the results. This is at its core what most real-world applications look like. Imagine a form on a website that calculates your monthly loan payment, or an app that tracks your fitness goals. Behind the scenes, the code looks a lot like this. It receives input, it calculates the result, and displays the information back to the user. Simple tools like this build your confidence and can give you the skills to tackle bigger projects. In this lesson, you built a simple calculator using user input, basic math, and F strings. Keep practicing. Try building your own versions, maybe a tip calculator, a unit converter, or even a small quiz app. These little projects build the foundation for bigger things. Next up, we'll explore common coding terms every beginner should know, helping you speak the language of software engineers. I'll see you there. Great work getting through this hands-on session. Keep coding, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next lesson.